Good morning. Today I wanted to talk about something I believe is extremely liberating once you see it in yourself and are able to liberate it out of your energy field. And that is self-deception. My desire to speak to you about this comes from my own personal experience of being mired in a pretty heavy fog of self-deception. And I'll talk about where that comes from. But first I want to say, when you are on the journey of self-realization and you are becoming aware of everything inside of you that isn't the essence of you, right? All of your fear-based conditioning. Certain emotions like anger or jealousy or panic or fear, those things might be pretty obvious, but self-deception, its very nature, it's deceptive, it's tricky. And from working with many people on deep psycho-spiritual levels, I've noticed that especially the feeling of confusion and fog is so normal to so many people that it actually feels like peace. So we all hear about the law of attraction, and on a more conventional level, let's say there's a story about how narcissists attract empaths and vice versa. And ultimately it's the same vibration, it's fear. One is an overactive kind of fear that's dominating, one is a passive fear that allows itself to be destroyed, which is still destructive to others. It's still abusive to others, right? If you allow yourself to be destroyed, how do you abuse others? Everybody has to come to your rescue. You drain other people's resources. People worry about you. It's still an abusive energy. But self-deception is what attracts things like somebody who lies to you, somebody who molests you, even rapes you. I'm sure you may have heard that we attract what we are. And if you have had an experience like that, you might say, but I'm not a rapist. I don't do that to others, but you do it to yourself. That's that's the message today. So metaphysically speaking, and in every dimension, even in your dreams, okay? If something is intruding you, or if it's your perception that something is intruding your experience, what attracts that is two things. One, it's that you lie to yourself. You lie to yourself, you know things, and then you mentally convince yourself out of that knowing. You might know that somebody is dangerous, but on the outside, they're totally functional. There's no proof, right? There's nobody to validate your concern. And especially if you were a child who grew up kind of being constantly gaslighted, saying, oh, I feel that this is wrong. I feel that this is off. I feel that. And then you're programmed to believe, no, you're exaggerating. No, that's not true. No, behave. You go from your knowing and your connection to the feeling, to your ability to sense the universe around you. You fall into this fog of am I crazy? It feels like a thick fog. So this is so important because when we're children, we need to survive. We count on the people around us to love us, to make sure that our physical bodies survive. And if you're like me, I am very aware of energy. I'm very aware of people's motives. I'm very aware of kind of the smell of what's, coming off of a person. And not that it's a judgment, but it's just an intelligence to be able to read these things so that you can just avoid them. And let me just pause this by saying your work, your internal work, gets triggered when you begin to judge and react against something. If you can just call a spade and say, that smells off, this food smells off, I'm not going to eat it. Maybe your body's saying you're going to have an allergic reaction to it. That's intelligence. After that, if you start to react and say, oh, that piece of shit, oh, like blah, blah, blah. If you start defending, rationalizing, justifying, taking a position, that is the ego. And that is where I would ask myself, what do I believe about myself that I need to make this argument, right? If I'm always defending myself in my head, I must not trust myself. I must not believe that I'm real, that my feelings are real, that I am worthy of receiving accurate information, because why else would I spend any breath or energy defending my position? You see, because all of our trains of thought are echoes of beliefs we have about ourselves or about life, which is the same thing. So back to self-deception. Self-deception, I want you to ask yourself, how does it look in your life? For me personally, my danger phrase is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That thought and me believing that thought, I don't know, begins a kind of slipping back into a literal fog. And at this point, I've seen it so clearly that it doesn't happen anymore, but it may happen again. And I'm glad that I'm aware of this phenomenon in consciousness so that I can move through it with intelligence. So when you know something for sure, your intuition, your gut, and maybe in your own mind, you'll start to explain it to other people, right? If you need to explain it to other people, you don't trust yourself. If you need to defend it, if you need to defend yourself and what you know to other people, you don't trust yourself. Okay? I really want you to understand this. It's so important for life, you can get so caught in it. It's so familiar to us because, all children are sensitive. And if you are programmed to disconnect from your source and from your senses, you have no ground to stand on except what other people say, which always feels off because you are uniquely constructed to sense reality because the universe is you having a unique experience and you are the most psychic person to your own experience. Meaning what's right for you, the direction you're going in, what's healthy for you, the value that you gain from experiences, that's all unique to you. So ask yourself, how does self-deception look in my life? How does this play out where I know something? And some people say, you can't really know anything. Here's the thing. Mentally, no, that's true. Mentally, you can't know anything about reality. But it's interesting because the conditioned ego that likes to stay in confusion will take a concept like that, like nothing means anything, like from A Course in Miracles, right? Like let's say you are in an abusive relationship and maybe you grew up in a household that was abusive. Maybe there was yelling, screaming, whatever. So it's so familiar to you that it doesn't even occur to your mind that you have the option to leave this situation. But then you go into the spiritual concepts and you're like, but there is no good or evil. But nothing means anything, right? So that's when I say spiritual concepts can actually keep you fractured. Fractured means instead of being attuned to your core and your senses, you start fracturing yourself into all the voices in your head, whether it was your mother, your teachers, spiritual concepts. You lose yourself in ideas. And so there is an energetic reality. And at the same time, in the example of relationships, right? Let's say you have abusive people in your life, but you love them. And spiritually, you know they are you and they are aspects of you. And if you're reacting to them, that's where your work is. If you allow them to be who they are, where they are, as they are, and simply know that that's who they are right now in their journey, that's the light coming through you. That's the truth coming through you. But where the rubber hits the road, right? You know, you're not going to let a pedophile babysit your kids. You're not going to let somebody who is using company money for drugs, you're not going to probably trust them with your money, right? So this is just intelligence. The marriage of reality, which is that everything is myself. Everything is myself. The parts of myself in this world, the people, places, things, events that I react to, my reactions are my faulty thoughts, my faulty perceptions. My reactions are my rejections of myself. But when I'm interacting and navigating the world, and I just know, you smell a plant and you know it's poisonous, and so on. I could give so many examples, but I think I've made the point. So self-deception attracts abuse. You are abusing yourself. It is the lowest vibration. Self-deception is the lowest vibration because you are the universe. You are the universe, and the universe and your essence speaks to you through the medium of your own desires, your own intuition, your own sense of where you're going, who you are, why you're here. So if you talk yourself out of any of those things, you are denying God or the universe or light or truth. You are denying yourself. The ultimate expression of life is being yourself, which is the whole and the individual at the same time. Being the fullest expression of the individual. A lily is a lily, a rose is a rose. You know, they are really completely themselves. They are their own color, their own fragrance. But you are the whole as well. And the universe expresses through you as an individual, but also in more subtle ways in terms of what you know about reality right now, energetically, what you have a natural aversion to energetically. That's information. That's information about how the universe is trying to express as you. And so in the game where we were born of all this fear-based conditioning, it is essential that you remember how to reconnect to that, how to stay connected to that, and how to spot in real time when you're falling for it. Another way that manifests, at least for me, the way it did, if you're talking to a person who's deceptive, sometimes you'll literally feel a fog come over you, like all of a sudden you feel like maybe you got a little dumber, or like it was harder to see, or it's just all of a sudden you feel kind of, you don't feel your core, you feel like you're floating because that energy has overcome you in a way. And so again, the question is, what do I believe about myself that I can even be fooled? Answer that question. I must believe that what I know is not true. I must believe that I have no ability to know what's good for me. I must believe that I'm not worthy of being safe. Just ask your own higher mind, ask your heart these questions. In real time, when you're having this experience, notice it. And I'll say another thing that's so incredibly important. The only way that you can be aware of these things, the only way that you can move through this is if you meditate and bathe in the higher energy. So when I say higher, I mean silence. I mean, maybe when you're lying down, project your consciousness up into the cosmos and bathe in that love of the cosmos. Visualize, a great master with you. Just meditate on the feeling of love. Just look within, feel your heart, do heart breathing, breathe directly into your heart, and get familiarize yourself with the feeling of love and clarity and connection. Spend time alone so that you know what you feel like when you're not interacting with or entangled with others. The meditating upon, even contemplating the idea of unconditional love, it creates a contrast between yourself, your true self, and your conditioning. It separates you out of that mud, out of that familiar environment of your conditioning. You won't be able to spot confusion unless you practice being clear. And one of the essential pieces to that is disidentifying from your mind. You are not your mind. You are not your mind. Anything you can observe is not fundamentally you. So just that clarity of seeing that, oh, my mind is doing this. Oh, my motive for talking to this person is this. My motive for posting this video is this. Being aware of all these movements already gives you clarity. But secondly, meditating and becoming familiar with, that's my favorite definition of meditation, becoming familiar with clarity. You might put yourself in an all-white dimension, maybe all white, and just be in that silent, clear space and remember and feel and memorize what that feels like. So when you're in a situation, when you're interacting with a human and that confusion is coming over you, oh, you feel it coming on, and you feel it just like a rain cloud kind of comes in, or when you wake up and it's foggy outside. You feel it. The atmosphere is different. So meditate on whatever feeling. I like love. I like the feeling of clarity. Clarity to me feels open and expansive. My aura feels open. I just feel completely clear. I feel spacious. I love just going to the void space, and just feeling the freedom and the clarity. And every time you're truly and deeply in the void, you kind of wipe the drive of some of your conditioning. So that really helps you move through it. So yeah, disidentify from your mind. Eckhart Tolle is a great teacher of that very simple aspect of awakening. Simple, but so powerful. He really transmits that teaching very well. But for me, what's been very important for me has been becoming familiar with what I want, writing down the essence of what I want, meditating on the word safe, meditating on the word clear. However you do it, in a visual way, in a sensing way, in a feeling way, use all of your senses to become familiar with what you want. Clarity, love, razor sharp, being sharp and alert, but also soft and open, right? Whatever occurs to you, whatever resonates with you, creating that contrast is what will help you identify it in real time while it is occurring in your real life. Otherwise, if you only do, what people call shadow work, if you only do that, it's gonna take a while for you to get out of it, because you won't be able to spot it while it's happening unless you know yourself beyond it, unless you know yourself as consciousness itself, as a soul, as clarity, as love. So that's my message for today, and I hope that it helps somebody somewhere.